Hi, everyone. Today I am going to talk about how to get your dog into Spain. Um, it wasn't very clear how to do it. There were a lot of wonderful Reddit posts, and shout out to a lot of the people on Facebook groups that pretty much talked me through how to do everything. And it just feels like a convoluted process. So I'm hoping that this video will help you with your decision to bring your dog over. In my case, I didn't have an apartment by the time I was moving, so I decided to leave my dog in the Midwest, come here, get the apartment, figure it out. And then I had to travel about 2 weeks before Thanksgiving to come pick her up. So I'm going to give you my thought process from the beginning to the end of what I did, some things I did right, and some things I'm not certain, could be a little bit different. So the first thing is the requirements to bring a dog in from the United States to Spain. For me, the only thing my dog needed was a rabies shot. So the situation was that she had her rabies shot before she got chipped. And they wanted the other way around. They want to attach the rabies shot to a chip number. So I had to go to the vet and say that I needed an extra rabies shot where you scan her chip first and then give her the rabies shot. And they went over, it took 30 minutes to explain to them. They were like, no, she already has her rabies, are good for 3 years. We can't give dogs extra rabies shots. It's harmful for them. I'm like, listen, either I send my dog to the pound or you give her this rabies shot so she can stay with me. And after a lot of insistence, they finally went on the website to look it up and they're like, oh, I see, I see. And then they had to do that. So she has a 14-digit chip number. And that's like an international standard, which your dog has to have. And then after that, they gave her the rabies shot. And this was about 2 months before I was ready to take her. So make sure that you get the rabies shot ahead of time and not just like the week before you're about to go. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing is making the USDA appointment, which is you make an appointment with your vet. They will look at your dog, make sure she's healthy, check her records, make sure she has everything that is needed to travel. Then they will fill out this form from the USDA. Make sure you are there when they fill out that form, because this is the number one cause of delays ever. They just fill out what seems best and it doesn't work. So for example, the form says address of consignee number 1, and then the second line says address of consignee number 1. And so my vet was like, oh, okay, here's her address in Indiana. And he repeated my address in Indiana. And that was rejected by the USDA for 5 days because what they wanted was the first address in Indiana. And then they wanted my Spanish address. And it didn't obviously say it. So he didn't know. So this is one of the reasons why you have to be there. And when you're there, take out a filled out form. So the USDA has a second form where it fills out, it's like an example form of all the information that should be there, where it should be, and stuff like that. Once they fill out that form, there are 2 ways to send out this form. I was fortunate, my vet had a internet portal that he could fill it out online and then send it to the USDA immediately so that at least there is no shipping delay situation. And so that immediately the next morning, they can start working on it. Some vets do not have that, and then you have to ship it. If you do, you need to ship it by FedEx next day overnight, because you only have 10 days and weekends count. So you only have 10 days from the day that the vet sees your dog till when your dog will be allowed in Spain. So my advice, find a vet that does it online so that it's at least it saves you some money and some time. Another thing that you need to do is to make sure that when they are asking for how to send it back to you, you pick FedEx overnight, 7 a.m. delivery. no signature required, so that they can drop it at a door and that does not cause any problems. That saved my skin, and I'll talk about that later. Once your vet has signed it and sent it over, this is the time where you need to be a Karen. You need to call that office like a Karen. That was my mistake. I didn't want to be annoying. So I called once a day and I said, "Oh, has the USDA signed it?" The people at the front desk did not get what I meant. So they said, "No, the vet has sent it over." I was like, "No, I know the vet has sent it over. Has the USDA signed it?" They were like, "I'm sure they've signed it." And they hung up. And I should have been a Karen, because what I realized was that they never talked to the vet. So the vet didn't check his portal to see if things were going through. And so it sat rejected in his box for 3 days and he did not know because he didn't go back and check. The Also, the front desk kept on saying I needed to call the USDA. Well, the USDA does not take phone calls. So the only way for you to find out how far the processing is going is if you talk to your vet. They can check on the portal to see if it's been opened, if it's been reviewed, if there are any errors, things like that. So that was my mistake. It was until he sent it over on a Monday. It was until Friday morning before I was like, "Listen, this thing should have arrived. Where is it?" That they finally got in touch with him. And then he saw that it was rejected. The problem was, I'd already bought my ticket for the United States. I was already in the United States by Friday morning. Friday morning was Veterans Day. Nobody in federal offices are working. I was set to leave on Monday. So that turned into an absolute catastrophe. But he fixed it that day and he sent it back on Monday. He sent it back that day. On Monday, I sent an SOS to the USDA office and pretty much sent a proof of my ticket saying that I'd already changed my ticket from Monday to Tuesday. I paid a lot of money to do that. And could you please fill it out? And they were very gracious to me. The Midwest office in Madison, Wisconsin, called me around 10 o'clock on Monday morning and said, "Okay, here are some things. I need to ask you a couple of questions." They answered my questions, and then they did it for me. Another thing your vet needs to give you is the case number. They will say there is no case number, but when they submit, there should be an email that gives you, I think it was a 5 to 6 digit number. And that is the number that the USDA uses to check. So when I got that phone call on Monday, they asked me for my case number. I didn't have it. I called, they said there is no case. I called the vet office. They said there is no case number. I was like, oh my goodness. I called the vet. The vet said, but because by this time I had his personal number. I called the vet. By this time, the vet said, I don't think there's a case number. I said, there should be an email. Go check. He checked and he's like, well, I got this number. It doesn't say case number. It's just the number. I was like, that's what I need. And so I gave it to them. They found my file. My file was already processed. It was great. One thing to note also about the FedEx shipping, which was a problem for me, was that the FedEx you need to do that shipping label 24 hours before it's going to be used. So that was another issue, in that the vet tried to change, I think on Sunday morning, he tried to change my shipping label from 9 a.m. delivery, because I needed to fly out by 10, to a 7 a.m. delivery. And he could not do that. So it took him a lot of time, and pretty much, I think they blocked like 3 or 4 of his credit cards before on Monday morning he was able to do that. So just keep that in mind, that you need to have that shipping label ready ahead of time. They had it processed Monday, sent it out in the mail by 3 o'clock. It arrived to me at 7 a.m. Awesome. And I was ready to go. So I was driving from Indianapolis to Chicago, because Chicago was the closest direct flight to Madrid. I didn't want to have connecting flights and run the risk of something happening with my girl, with my dog. So I decided to drive the 4 hours to Chicago, which worked okay. I already had the rental car. Everything else was fine. And so we drove with my two bags and my dog, her crate. She, of course, she didn't drive in the car in the crate, but we drove to Chicago and everything was fine. Now, I will talk about the shipment of her.